Great guests continue. What a fun day today.
It was. I enjoyed the show. A lot of great guests.
Continuing it on now. Don Pinnell, John L. Scott here in Shelton, Riveting Radio Real Estate. Good morning.
Good morning. Glad to be part of a fun day.
Yeah, it's been a good conversations coming on down the pike, and I know we always have good ones to hear. What's going on in the market around these parts?
Well, it's still low.
Yeah.
Still low inventory. So if you're thinking about selling, this is a good time to do it.
Let me ask you a question on this one here. It's already getting you off the rails. Most people go to these online websites to search for homes, but sometimes I see homes like my neighbor's house that went up for sale, and it didn't show up on some of these sites. You've got access to everything, right?
Yeah, and usually, even if sometimes if it's for sale by owner, it won't show up on the normal sites, but most of the time it should. So I don't know why. I mean, all of our listings show up on all of the the Zillow and the Trulia and the Redfin and all of those. So yeah.
Is that something where you encourage folks to maybe get a check on? Because we've talked about this over the years, where people have an idea of a house perhaps, and then unfortunately they realize the costs may be just out of their price range, or in some cases way out of their price range.
Right.
And so is this a good idea to get a better sense of what their house is, and then when they're ready to sell it, hopefully through you, and then buy a new one again, hopefully through you, that they can get a sense of what the actual value, because I think my house is worth $1 million, but it's got a bunch of memories in it and all that kind of stuff.
Right, and it's hard to put a price tag on those.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always tell people, those sites are a good place to start. But if you want to really kind of go through the whole process, I'm happy to do what we call a market analysis for you. So somebody comes in and says, hey, here's my address, and so then I do the research of looking at first thing I look at is the county site to see what it's assessed for. Then I look at comparable sales based on the size and the amenities, and get and I usually try and do like a range of prices, saying, okay, based on what I'm seeing, your house is worth somewhere between this and this, and then we sit down and it becomes a negotiation. But it is hard. I try to encourage folks when they're selling their house to stop thinking of it as their house.
Yeah.
Because somebody else is going to come in and buy it, and they're not going to care whose house it was. They're going to look at it as their new house. So it's, if you can, and sometimes it's hard, I know, if you can take that step back and look at it from somebody else's point of view, that's always a good first step.
We had this conversation again back with my neighbors who were just selling. They had a stager come in, and the staging was not in their wheelhouse.
Taste.
They did not care for how it was staged. But Stephanie and I were like, well, what do you care?
It's not your house. Right.
You want to sell. You want to put the best foot forward. You want to sell this thing for the most money possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they went so far as to change some of the staging.
Oh my. Oh my.
I didn't necessarily think that was a good idea.
No. If you're going to pay for that service, you probably should go with, because those people are professionals. They know what what's appeals to the majority. Yeah.
The other thing I see on these websites is if you click on a lot or a house for sale, you're not necessarily going to get someone who may not get you.
Right.
Whereas, it's going to be the first person that picks up the phone call or something like that.
Right. Yeah. So if folks, and again, I use those sites sometimes just to kind of look around and see what's going on. But if you're going to do that, I recommend that you use that just as a jumping off place, because sometimes what that site is saying your house is worth is not really according to the market what your house is worth, because they're not in the market. They're just kind of taking overall cues from who knows how big of an area. So use that as a jumping off point. But then I also really encourage folks to come and talk to me or some other realtor that will kind of walk you through the whole process and be there for you through the whole thing, explaining the different things that come up to you. So there's a lot of talk about that everything is going to become automated, and I mean, I hope that's not the case, because I really think that it's in this situation especially, it's good to have an actual person that you can talk to.
That's how Spencer and I feel about this job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah, machines are nice, but they can only go so far.
Sure.
Right.
What did you bring in for us?
Well, interestingly, talking about, getting houses ready to sell and stuff, I got this really cool pamphlet from one of the inspector services that we use, and it's talking about what you can expect to pay for different repairs to your home.
Okay.
So I thought today we could talk about some of the exterior stuff, and maybe next time we can talk about some of the interior stuff. And then there's also a really cool list on the back that talks about life expectancy of different components of your house.
Oh.
So I thought that's all really good information as you're getting your house ready to sell. So structurally, and I'm not going to go read all of them. There's a whole ton, but I just highlighted some ones that I've seen come up over the years. And the first one is under structure is excavation and waterproofing of a basement. A lot of times you go into a house and you'll go down into the basement and smell that kind of musty smell, and that's kind of an indication that something's going on, that there's water coming in. So for excavation and waterproofing, which is where they actually go in, and this is pretty extreme, if it's might not have to do all of this, but they actually go in and dig around the perimeter and waterproof it from the outside usually. And you can expect that to cost anywhere from $125 to $175 a square foot. So a little pricey for that. So, what I would recommend if you have that is to get a person who is familiar with what needs to be done about that, because you may not need to do that. So, for example, just fixing some foundation cracks where they inject some polymer or whatever into the cracks, that only costs you $500. So, anywhere from that to up to thousands to fix that problem.
And this is structural, so you're going to want somebody professional to do this.
Exactly. Yes. And you're going to want somebody professional to inspect it for you as well. I mean, a licensed inspector can come in and say, yes, there's a crack there, but they're probably not going to be able to determine where that crack came from. So if they say, hey, you got a crack in your foundation, I recommend you get a licensed contractor in here to take a look at it. And then they will be able to tell you, hey, we can fix it for $500 injecting some glue or whatever, or we need to go in and completely do a whole dig out the perimeter and waterproof.
Wow.
So, but if you don't do that, it can cause major problems down the road, not only with mold inside the house, but also with sinking foundations and all that kind of stuff. So that's a pretty big one. For wall systems, in other words, like siding and that kind of stuff, I picked there's all kinds of there's brick and brick veneer and all that kind of stuff. I picked vinyl just because that seems to be a popular one these days. And to do that, you can expect to pay anywhere between $5 and $6 a square foot to put new vinyl siding on a house. So, another, and that is just the siding. So if you run into problems with the wood underneath, then of course that's gonna go up as well.
Let me ask you a question about vinyl. So vinyl windows, it's still glass window, right? Or
vinyl is just the
perimeter,
the frame.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's still glass.
I hear that a lot. Vinyl windows.
Yeah.
As opposed to the old kind of wooden window frames.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. That's just the frame part. The interior is usually still glass, although it can be other stuff too. But
one thing we're noticing is we bought this house in July. It's a few years old.
Right.
Oh, the appliances are dying one after the other. We just lost our dishwasher.
Oh gosh.
Is that something when you're looking to sell? Let's say your appliances are kind of. Do you have to disclose the age of them, or do you replace them with kind of like cheaper models as you sell, just so it's new without investing a lot of money in them? Or do you have any tips on that?
It depends. I mean, if it's completely dead when you're listing your house, then you have two options. You can either not list it as being included in the sale, although if it's like a stove, the house has to have a stove.
Sure.
Doesn't have to have a dishwasher. So if your dishwasher is dead, then you just don't include that in the sale, or you go and replace it with a cheaper model.
What do you mean it has to have a stove?
Has to have a cooking source.
That's
in order to be.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It doesn't have to have a refrigerator. Doesn't have to have a dishwasher, but it does have to have a cooking source. Usually a stove or a range or something like that. Yeah. In order to qualify as
As a kitchen?
as a residence.
Oh, it's a
As a
residence.
residence, yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't realize that either. So interesting. Yeah. But it's fairly common, especially these days with higher priced places, that you don't see a refrigerator, for example, because people have invested a lot of money in the refrigerator,
Yeah.
and so they tend to take it with them. So,
That's a good point.
And different measurements probably.
yeah.
Fit into.
Yeah, and so that's something that if that's important to you, then be sure and look at the listing and see what's included. It'll list in there, okay, the sale includes the stove, the dishwasher, and the refrigerator. So, and that is also something that an inspector will take a look at and make sure that it's working. And if it's not, and it says that that's included in the sale, then that becomes a negotiation with the seller to say, hey, you said a dishwasher was included in the sale. The dishwasher doesn't work, so either fix it or put a different one in there.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
yeah. So and then along with windows and stuff, exterior doors, for a replacement of a patio door, you can expect to pay anywhere from $775 to $1,600. That seems high to me, but then I guess that's what they cost. An aluminum storm door can cost you about $375. So be aware of that. And then, of course, if you want custom, all of that kind of stuff, you're gonna pay a little bit more. Asphalt shingles over existing, which in Washington I believe you can put up to two layers on. So although roofers don't like to do that as much anymore, they like to take them off and do that. But to replace asphalt shingles over existing can cost anywhere from $2 to $3 a square foot. So, but again, that doesn't sound like a lot, but a square foot isn't very big.
Yeah. No.
So you have to multiply out those things. Asphalt shingles to strip off and reshingle is $3 to $5 a square foot. So and then asphalt shingles of high quality can be $5 to $7 a square foot. So again, talk to if that's something that's going to have to happen on your house, call a roofer and get that. They'll be happy to give you an estimate on. They'll take and then they even will say that that's just an estimate to replace the shingles. If they get in there and find out that the sheathing underneath is bad, then of course that's going to be extra.
Yeah.
So, gutters just a gutter cleaning can cost you $175. If you end up having to replace, then it's just a matter of the gutters and the downspouts that are aluminum are $7 to $9 a linear foot. So, and flashing around a chimney, which is fairly common, that needs to happen, that can cost you $250 to $500. Reflashing a skylight can be $425 to $625.
Wow.
So, those are things and those are usually things that show up on an inspection that you might want to talk to the seller about doing, because those are, you don't want water coming in your house, obviously. Yeah. If you want to repoint your chimney, which is where they take the bricks and redo the grout or the mortar around the bricks, you can figure that's going to cost you $8 to $11 per brick.
Whoa! Wow!
So, yeah. Wow. If you want a rain cap on, which is another fairly common thing that happens with chimneys, that's only $125 to put a new rain cap on. Garages, if you want to build a detached carport, that can cost you $5,200. If you want a detached wood frame single car garage, that could be $10,500. So those are things to keep in mind. A lot of houses, I'm always surprised around here, don't have garages. So, if that's something that you need and the house doesn't come with one and you love it otherwise, then, figure that it's going to cost you probably.
You build a garage, you can't afford the car.
Could do with the car, yeah, exactly. This is interesting. Removal of an existing garage, which does happen sometimes if it's fallen down and stuff, they figure about $1,575.
Wow.
So, and that's to tear it down and haul it away, I'm assuming.
You've got all this information. Someone getting ready to sell their house, especially summer coming.
Right.
I mean, it's a good time to probably start planning some of these projects too, before they get too booked up.
Right.
What's your phone number again?
360-490-4493, and I will definitely have this with me if somebody wants to sit down and we can, if you have a specific thing, I'd be happy to.
There's a lot of things that I wasn't really familiar with. Those price points. The homeowner would probably want to go for the cheapest option, whereas the inspector's like, listen, man, down the road, this is an issue.
Right. Well, and that's something that you have to keep in mind too. Chances are, if you ask a seller to replace the dishwasher, for example,
They'll get one off Craigslist or
they're
something.
probably going to go
Yeah.
with just something that just works. So if having a high-end dishwasher is important to you, then that might be something that you might want to just budget for on your own, because then you can pick the one you want.
How much value does that add when you're selling a house? Not a lot, when it comes to shiny new.
Not as much as you think.
Yeah.
Certainly not enough to cover the expense of putting it in. But
Yeah.
but on the other hand, say you have a junky stove,
Yeah.
and you replace it with even just a newer model, that does make a difference, because folks come in and see that obviously you've taken care of this house, and so it depends. But it is definitely something to consider. So.
Don Pennell, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Nice
yeah.
to have you back around these parts.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, welcome
always
back.
available over at the John L. Scott office there.
Right.
You can get in touch with her, and
Right.
we'll put the links in the show notes.
Great.
Have a great weekend.
Thank
Happy
you. You
Easter.
too.
Take care.
Happy Easter.
Happy
yes.
Easter.